top of the homegrown violent extremist and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil.
On top of the homegrown violent extremist and domestic violent extremist threat, on top of the homegrown violent extremist and domestic violent extremist threat.
Very revealing little bit of testimony, wasn't it? That's why we talked about it so much at the time. Directed, the FBI is asked specifically about Hamas, jihadi terror, the border, what are the threats, and immediately, he combines domestic terrorism. But who are these domestic terrorists? You remember the display that got leaked out there? People flying that dangerous Gadsden flag, come and take it flags, little things like that. Joining me now, in my opinion, one of the heroes of this country, even though he'd never call himself that, FBI whistleblower, former FBI special agent, my friend Stephen Friend joins us. Okay, Steve, who exactly are these domestic violent extremists the FBI is looking for, and what are they doing when they say they're looking for them?
Well, thanks for having me, Jesse. Here's the thing that the FBI loves to do. They love to issue the caveat that the FBI does not investigate First Amendment protected activity. That is utter, complete hogwash. The FBI loves to look for groups of individuals or even individuals themselves who are doing nothing illegal, nothing improper, that they have decided to not follow along with a new secular state religion that we're all required to uphold, where we worship at the altar of the government and we accept premises such as people in white lab coats know the science and we have to follow it, or transgender madness. And the FBI will open investigations. And here's the thing, the warfare that is going on against in the American people in this case, all tools are at their disposal. They will go after them, they will reinterpret laws and charge them with crimes, or they will label them. Take somebody like a Mike Glover, an American contingency, who's encouraging people to be self-reliant, obviously departing from the idea that you have to worship at the altar of the government. And the FBI likes to label that individual a militia violent extremist with a low probability of violence, 0 being the lowest possible number, but it's still low. And now the FBI has an open investigation, an open intelligence investigation, where they can continue to gain information. They have now found the man, and they're going to look for the crime.
Okay, now explain what that means when they now have an open investigation. They have an open investigation on you, and I know they're all over you, but an open investigation on me. So what does that mean for average American? He put up a Facebook post a little too spicy for the FBI, and now they've opened an investigation on him. Now what can they do?
Well, depending on the level of the investigation, if it's a preliminary or a full, in most cases this is going to be a full investigation, they're going to have all these tools at their disposal, and they're going to have a lot of pressure to use all the tools at their disposal because of the FBI's quota system. They have to say that they use these tools. They're a hammer in search of a nail. So if they were to open up an intelligence investigation, they could be looking through your mail. They could look through your social media that's publicly available, or they could lean on their partners in private industry who they like to liaison with and establish tripwires with to go through your private messages between you, your family, and your friends, as was what happened to my wife. My wife sent a private message on her Facebook account, and her account was immediately shut down. Why do you think that happened? So those are the sort of communications that can be monitored, and that could even extend into eventually obtaining a search warrant for your phone, a wire tap on any sort of texting or calling that you might do. Or they might just come bang on your door at 6 o'clock in the morning like they like to do with the Bearcat and the tactical team and say that they have a search warrant for you now because you have done something that they deem to be improper, illegal. And finally, I'll say this. Once the process is begun, the process itself is the punishment because as Donald Trump is finding out, once a process has begun, they can say you've obstructed that process, even if the underlying reason for that process to have begun is completely ridiculous. They can say, we're investigating you for wearing a red tie. Well, that's not illegal. Well, you're not cooperating with us. You've now obstructed our investigation, and we're going to arrest you for it.
Good grief. Okay, Steve, I'm gonna ask the lamest question in the world, and I know it's lame, but I want you to unlame all of us. Isn't there some protection the average citizen has from the federal law enforcement arm declaring war on people like this? Shouldn't there be something in place to stop it?
There should, under ideal circumstances. You have supposed to have co-equal branches of government. So you have hopefully a House of Representatives that could stand in the gap and use the power of the purse strings to defund the woke and weaponized FBI and the DOJ. But they've proven unwilling to do that thus far. They're not willing to use the Holman rule, where in effect they could zero out salaries or entire programs. They've just gone along with it and said that, well, I guess America is going to have to vote next year and give us more power and authority, but they're not willing to use the power that they've already been given. I think, though, that we're looking, and myself included, I'm going to hold myself accountable. You can't look to Washington to solve this problem. You have to look to your local authorities. So I had the privilege to be involved with an effort in South Florida, down in Naples, where that county established itself as a sanctuary county for the Bill of Rights. And in effect, the county board of commissioners and the sheriff in that county are going to stand in the gap if the FBI or the federal government is out of control and comes forward with something that they feel is out of line with the Constitution, and the sheriff will stand in the gap to protect the citizens.
Okay, Steve, let's talk about you. And I know you don't like to focus on that, but I know there's you, there's Garrett, there's Kyle, many more brave people who have come forward. How is the FBI handling these cases? How are they handling you?
Well, they're mishandling it, I think, for all of the FBI whistleblowers. And like you said, I don't like to focus on myself, but I'll talk about somebody else. There is currently a whistleblower who came forward to the Judiciary Committee, and their information was handed over to the Inspector General's office, which should, in effect, be doing oversight of the FBI. The Inspector General's office then, in turn, turned that information back over to the FBI. So now that person who was hoping to remain secret and anonymous, their identity is known to the FBI, and the FBI has now opened up a domestic terrorist investigation of this individual for their participation at President Trump's speech on January 6th. They attended the speech and left, did not go over to the Capitol, but the FBI deemed that to be questionable and wound up suspending the individual security clearance, as is what happened with all of the whistleblowers. In my case, my actual clearance was revoked the day that I testified in front of the Weaponization Select Committee. So clearly, all the guns have turned on the individuals who have come forward in good faith, hoping to reform the agency, because the agency is obviously happy with how things are going and wants to remove the problematic employees who are not willing to just follow orders.
Okay, so just to be clear, an FBI agent attended a speech given by his president at the time, then left, committed no unlawful acts that we're aware of, and now he's being investigated by the same FBI as a potential domestic terrorist. Do I have that right?
You do, and I have a good authority that several of us that are undergoing that. I always like to try to find the air marshal who's following me whenever I fly these days.
Yeah, okay, good grief. Okay, Steve, how do we fix this? You were inside of it. I've never been inside the FBI. You were a special agent in the FBI, unless I'm mistaken. How do we fix this?
Well, I think first we have to change our mindset here. We have to get uncomfortable. We have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and think about things in a different way. This country existed before the FBI. It can certainly exist after the FBI. So if you installed me as a radical dictator, I would do away with it. But I think that you can take some large steps to reforming it. One, we have to defund the intelligence collection apparatus. Two, we have to defund and eliminate the quota system that is perversely incentivizing people to gin up stats and go after and target Americans. And lastly, we really need to think about disarming the FBI entirely, making it an unarmed investigative agency that can assist the local sheriff's offices and police departments, because those are the guys who know the usual suspects. They know the problems that are in their communities. The FBI's prime directive should be to assist them. So let's think of it as empowering local law enforcement instead of defunding the police, as it will be labeled undoubtedly by the communist left in this country.
Steve, you are the man, my brother. I appreciate you more than you know. Come back soon, please.
I will. Thanks, Jesse.